Philadelphia yard would bring the ship back to life, updating her electronics for the Navy of the 1960s. Finally, after nearly a year of work, the reborn New Jersey steams triumphantly to sea. On September 29, 1968, the world's only active battleship arrived off the coast of Da Nang, South Vietnam, ready for work. Captain of the New Jersey at the time was the colorful J. Edward Snyder.
The commanding officer of the field hospital said that he was taking incoming. Incoming means that the North Vietnamese were shelling his hospital while they were trying to do operations. And would I consider lobbing a shell over his hospital just for the heck of it to try to see if that would stop them? And I said, well, I'd be perfectly willing to do that. Let me take a look at what the situation is. And, of course, one of my officers said, you can't fire over your own troops. And I said, they're not troops, they're the hospital. He said, well, that's worse. I said, oh, shut up, we're going to do it anyhow. So we would stand up there, and between the hours of 1 o'clock and 3 o'clock in the morning, fire randomly 2 shells directly over the hospital and have the explosion go several thousand yards over the hospital. And not one time during the 30 days we did that did the hospital take incoming from the Vietnamese.
Throughout her tour in Vietnam, the New Jersey was the constant object of attention from the press. On one occasion, a reporter approached Captain Snyder and asked about the ship's real effectiveness.
I said to him, well, why don't you ask the people we're supporting, for heaven's sakes? They're the people that know whether I'm effective or not, or whether the ship's effective. So he goes ashore, he comes back, and he shows it to me, and he plays me the tape. And the last line of the tape was, if it hadn't been for the Big J, they would have zapped our ass.
By June of 1969, the New Jersey was back home in friendly waters. And only 6 months later, on a damp and chilly day in Bremerton, Washington, an old story was being repeated once again. For the second time, the New Jersey had been consigned to the mothball fleet. By 1981, America had a new president, and Ronald Reagan's Secretary of the Navy, John Lehman, had new ideas to build an enlarged fleet organized around aircraft carriers and recommissioned Iowa-class battleships. By summer, President Reagan had signed the new defense legislation, and all 4 of the Iowa-class ships were on their way back. They would be transformed, modernized with the very latest of weaponry. No longer would their offensive action be limited to the range of their historic 16-inch guns. 8 box launchers for 32 Tomahawk cruise missiles with a range of 1,500 miles, and 4 quadruple canister launchers for 16 close-in Harpoon anti-ship missiles were mounted in the superstructures. 4 Vulcan phalanx weapon systems would provide defense against enemy aircraft and incoming missiles. New communication systems, air search radar, and improved living spaces equipped the Iowas for the 1980s. To replace and refit what was required of the original equipment, no longer manufactured, the Navy secured tons of items from America's museum battleships, the North Carolina, Alabama, and Massachusetts. The 1982 recommissioning of the New Jersey cost $326 million, more than 3 times what it cost to build her in 1941. But to Secretary Lehman, intent on creating a new Navy, symbolic of America's status as a world power, she was more than worth it. By 1983, the New Jersey is bright and new once again. She cruises as the centerpiece of a new battle group. She is part of a peacekeeping force off the coast of Lebanon. For 6 months, she cruises the coast and shells Syrian gun positions ashore. In time, she is joined at sea by the USS Iowa and her sister ships, Missouri and Wisconsin.
Ralston, what do you have on Skunk about 5 degrees off the port bow?
Yes, sir. It's Skunk India, bearing 255, 21,000. Course 075.
Evaluator, I have an update on the Kenda. Very well.
All stations report, ready for call for fire.
All stations report and ready to call for fire. Report, ready to call for fire.
On a routine training mission in the spring of 1989, as the crew of the Iowa prepares to fire the center 16-inch gun in number 2 turret, something goes terribly wrong. 47 sailors are killed in a tragedy that to this day has not been fully explained. And as the Cold War comes to an end the next year, the Iowa and her sister, the New Jersey, are again to be decommissioned. Only the Wisconsin and Missouri continue to cruise and train with the modern Navy, flying the flag, awaiting the day when they too will be returned to mothballs, sold as scrap, or converted as museums. No one yet realized that America's 2 remaining battleships would soon fight their 3rd war. Perhaps their final war. In Operation Desert Storm, the battleship was once again an integral part of the American strike force. From their decks, Tomahawk cruise missiles were launched at targets up to 800 miles away in Iraq and Kuwait. They were so accurate and destructive that eventually the coalition ran out of targets. No hostile fire ever reached the battleships. The relentless bombardment from their 16-inch guns helped pave the way as the troops of the coalition entered Kuwait City unopposed. And all the while, the battleship sailors aboard their ships watched their success, as did the rest of the world. On the 6th of March, the Wisconsin departs the Persian Gulf. The Missouri heads for home on the 21st. They will sail into a post-Cold War world of military downsizing and critics who still remember the tragic explosion aboard the Iowa. By September, the Wisconsin has been decommissioned, and the Missouri's days are growing shorter. But she will make one last symbolic and ceremonial voyage. She is going back to observe the anniversary of the event that plunged America into World War II. Paul Stilwell.
One morning in early December 1991, it was my privilege to be here on board the battleship Missouri as she steamed in the Pearl Harbor Channel for the last time. As we went in on the port side were the mooring quays where the battleships had been in December 1941 when the Japanese attacked. And in my mind's eye, I could see the smoke and the flame billowing up where hundreds of American sailors were killed.
The past and present intertwine in the memories of young and old. 50 years ago to the day, their thoughts float back to that Sunday morning when many thought the era of the battleship had come to an end. For the Missouri, symbol of all the great battleships of the Second World War, it has been a journey back in time. The next chapter in her long life can now begin.
Swift response. Battleship. Discovery Channel presents the fantastic history of this devastating weapon. From the first Dreadnought to today's high-tech warships, you'll hear first-hand accounts of furious head-to-head battles. Go below and see how these ships hunt, target, and destroy the enemy. This is real, on-the-deck, torrid battle footage. This powerful video delivers nearly 2 hours of action for just $24.95. Battleship. Call now.
March 31, 1992. The Long Beach Naval Shipyard. Her equipment inactivated. Her compartment stripped of every usable item. The world's last active battleship is to be decommissioned. She seems but a symbol of past glories, the last of her breed of thoroughbreds. For 100 years, they changed the world into which they had been born. Dreadnought began an arms race that never seemed to cease. To this day, major powers still seek the ultimate weapon. For the first 50 years of its life, the battleship was that weapon, the nuclear weapon of her day. Now, one by one, America's last battleships have been retired, fitting memorials to the thousands who died in war. Texas, Massachusetts, Alabama, North Carolina. And now the Missouri is in receipt of her final orders. Her guns silenced, her system shut down. She will pass from history into legend and take her place moored near the battleship Arizona as a memorial in Pearl Harbor. Two great warships that mark the beginning and the end of the greatest conflict in human history. Missouri, her name officially stricken from the Register of American Naval Vessels, awaits her fate. The bugle no longer calls her crew to quarters. And yet on those days when the sun glistens on her great guns and the wind whistles down her decks, the ghosts of another time would still seem to speak the question, is this not the great dreadnought of 3 wars, the peacetime symbol of power the world over? Were not her weapons the finest in the world? And did they not speak peace as well as war? For 50 years, the symbol of American naval power. The battleship. For a century, its guns spoke for the great nations of the world. Instruments of death and destruction, mighty symbols of national strength and resolve. The battleship, a warrior for all time.
Next week, the weapons, the power, the strategy. Explore the dynamic but deadly naval forces of the past and present. Anchors Away. Next week, only on the Discovery Channel. Explore your world.